So, who wants to learn how to walk on water? Raise your hand. Who wants to learn how mindfulness can help you do that? Raise your hand and say, yeah. Okay. Alright, perhaps like me, you've worked with athletes where you see them trying to always battle to get into a positive state of mind. When they're about to perform, they're battling the negative voice, trying to be positive. And then when they get to performance, they're too tired. There's nothing left to perform. Perhaps like me, you've been into work or teams where you see people stressed out, depressed, burnt out. You try to help them, but you can't seem to get them to come out of this. And then one day you come into work, they're not there anymore. Possibly, you've been on holiday with a friend. You're in a beautiful surrounding, but that friend cannot connect with the environment around them, no matter what you do. Now I want you to imagine you're working with that same athlete, and you can actually get them, they don't need to struggle with being positive or negative. They can just accept their mind where it is and focus on performance, what is useful and what's in their control. Imagine you have something that you can show people where they're able to self-regulate so that they're not depressed, stressed out, burnt out, and they can kind of engage in their environment and be in harmony with what's around them. And also imagine you go on holiday with that same friend and you're able to help them connect so that they can enjoy the simple things in life like a sunset or a waterfall, and they're not just constantly on their phone. Now, my name is Sonny Wabweze. This is my third ENYSSP. I run a company called Dreamcatchers Performance where I do mental performance coaching. And I want to talk to you guys about mindfulness and how mindfulness can help people in sports. But before I do that, I just want to tell you guys a little story. You can just indulge me. Our story is set in Timbuktu. Timbuktu is in Africa. It's where the Atlantic Ocean meets the desert. It's a stunning place. You can imagine beaches and sand dunes. It's got beautiful vegetation and got mountains there. Now, our story starts with Mahmoud. Mahmoud wakes up and he's about to go on a worldwide adventure. He gets up, he's so excited, he's on his phone, hashtagging, telling everybody about his worldwide adventure. Can't wait to leave. Downstairs is his mum, Miriam. She's been making bread. And she's looking out the window, enjoying the beautiful scenery, smelling the sea breeze coming in off the desert. And she kind of also hears the shepherds coming down from the mountains. And then she turns around and Mahmoud comes crashing downstairs, about to have his breakfast, well, about to run out the door. Mary says, please, Mahmoud, can you just sit down and have your breakfast before you leave? As they're having the breakfast, Mahmoud is busy eating the bread really quickly, can't wait to get to the train station. Mary asks him, please, Mahmoud, before you go, can you stop at the monastery to have a word with Idris, the elder, just to say bye? Mahmoud says, okay, yes, I will do, Mum. You now get to the monastery where Idris the elder is sitting down meditating with his eyes closed. He's been meditating for the last 2 hours. He's perfectly relaxed and still and happy. The only disturbance is his stomach rumbling when he smelled Miriam's bread. And in his meditation, all he hears is crash, bang, wallop. He doesn't open his eyes, he just says, hello, Mahmoud. Mahmoud says, how did you know it was me? Idris doesn't say anything. The Mahmoud says, Idris, I'm about to go on my worldwide travels. I just thought I'd come and say goodbye. And I was wondering, have you got any words of wisdom for me? Idris, with his eyes closed, says, words of wisdom. The treasure that you seek is already inside of you. Mahmoud thinks, okay, not sure what that means. Okay, thanks, bye. Just runs off. 5 years later, I'm about to go to Vietnam. After stress at work, I'd started a mindfulness course and I thought, I've had enough. Life is too short. I'm going to go to Vietnam. I get to Vietnam, there's 14 of us in a group, and our tour guide is Mahmoud. And we all agree that Mahmoud is the best tour guide that we've ever had because he has so many stories about the world. Anywhere he's been there, he knows somebody, and he can tell you a story. So we start in Vietnam, we start from Ho Chi Minh, we go to the Mekong Delta, and then we get to Ha Long Bay, and we're on a boat. going around Halong Bay. Halong Bay, I don't know if you guys have been, but it's a really beautiful place with loads of islands. And when we were just telling us his stories, we were all there drinking wine, enjoying ourselves. But I remember thinking, there's a bit of touch of sadness to my mood. I'm not sure what it was. I just made a note there, okay, next day I'll just ask him about it. Because even between the happiness and the smiling, there was something I noticed. So we finished drinking, get to the hotel, come down for breakfast, only to be told my mood has been in an accident. So we were like, oh Jesus, is he okay? So we all said, okay, we'll have breakfast, rush to the hospital to see him. We get to the hospital thinking, what condition is my mood in? And we get there only to find that he's getting a warm bath by the doctor. Her name is Dr. Camilla. So we come in and say, Mahmood, we thought something was wrong with you. Mahmood just laughs and says, no, obviously as you can see, I'm in good hands. Dr. Camilla introduces herself and says that Mahmood's going to be fine. You know, they've looked after him, he's okay. She excuses herself. So we sit there, talking with Mahmood, joking, asking him what happened. He said he was on his motorbike riding, somebody hit him off the bike, but he's okay now. So we said, okay, we'll see you later, we'll come back in a few days' time. Come back in a few days' time, and we walk through the door. Mahmood's lying on the bed in distress. And I was like, what happened? I thought you said you were okay. Mahmood says, I am, but I found out Dr. Camilla is leaving. And I said, are there no other doctors in this place? And then he said, I think I really like Dr. Camilla. I was like, okay, where is she going to? She's going to Timbuktu. I said, isn't that where you're from, Mahmood? He's like, yes. I can't understand why she's going to Timbuktu. So he's in distress. I said to him, what are you going to do about it? Mahmood says, I think I'm going to think about it and decide at the end of the week. So we go off. Come at the end of the week, Mahmood has decided that he's going to go to Timbuktu to go be with Dr. Camilla. So we take him out, drink, celebrate, and he goes off. 6 months later, Mahmood is in the monastery. He comes out of the prayer room with his mop bucket, and he puts the mop bucket to the side. And the person who comes behind him is Dr. Camilla. And Dr. Camilla puts her mop bucket and just waves and says hi to him, and says, I'll see you at breakfast, and goes off. Mahmood smiles back and waves, and he's now looking out at the sunset. And Idris comes out, and he's like, hi Mahmood, did you find the treasure that you seeked? And Mahmood smiles and says, yes Idris, the treasure is right here all the time, inside of me. Now, story, thank you for listening to the story. The story has a few themes that I'm going to be touching on as I go through the workshop. And the main point of my workshop is mindfulness. I want to try and go through today, I'm going to talk about my MSc project I did on mindfulness. I'm going to try and share my personal experience of mindfulness, and then we're going to do some mindfulness practice. And what I really would like is your personal feedback. I want to hear your personal experience of what the practice was like for you on mindfulness. Now, how mindfulness make you walk on water? I got this from, I don't know, people from the UK. So, the England football team, they nearly won the World Cup. In the UK, that was almost like Jesus walking on water. And it turns out that they used a mindfulness practitioner to help them. So I thought, it's worth a further look into this mindfulness practice. The other thing was, at my first NS conference, I love mindfulness and I've been doing it for a long time. And I tried to explain it to my very good friend now, Dragana. And as I was trying to explain it, I started talking and she was like, but what is it? What is mindfulness? I couldn't find the words to explain exactly what it means and how to quantify it. So I decided I'm going to go and study more on it. And that's how I did the MSc. So I hope to share my MSc findings with you guys. So, the first bit is, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is simply the self-regulation of attention in the present moment, with an openness and flexibility to what is happening. Because essentially what happens is most of the day we're just mindless, we're autopilot, just going around trying to finish our to-do list. But by practicing mindfulness, you learn to bring your attention into the present, be aware and accept what is happening. Now, the most important thing for me is benefits in sports, which why I wanted to study mindfulness, to show everyone why it is useful for sports. Now the first thing is something called metacognitive awareness. which is simply just a fancy word for saying you see your thoughts as just thoughts. They're not reality. You don't have to do what they say, and that gives you a bit of space so that you can then decide how you're going to react to it, what behavior you're going to choose. So it gives you psychological flexibility and behavioral flexibility. The other thing is, by giving you that space, you can then, your attention, you can control your attention and switch your attention to what you need to do, which is quite useful, everyone will agree, for performance, because you can then focus on what's useful and what's in your control. And by being able to do this, you're able to self-regulate yourself, because you can then choose, how am I going to respond? You don't just let your thoughts push you around or do what your thoughts are saying. And also, you don't waste energy fighting with your thoughts. You just bring your mind to focus on what it is you want to do. So I was going to share some personal stories of my experience in mindfulness. The first one is the New York Marathon. I did this in 2009. At the start of the marathon, I was all there, ready, prepared, had my playlist, I was listening to my music, and I went in to use the toilet. This is, for those who've done a marathon, I don't know why at the start of the marathon we just need to use the toilet several times. So I went in to use the toilet, put my iPod on the side. Back then we had iPods, this is 2009. Came out, somebody went into the toilet straight after me. And then I realised, oh my God, I haven't got my iPod. Run back in, the person had put the iPod into the toilet. And this is where the Nigerian in me came out. I just went straight into the toilet, pulled my iPod out, started cleaning it, trying to fix it. The iPod was dead. As you can imagine, my mind went crazy. I was like, I couldn't run 5 kilometers without music, and now I was supposed to run 40 kilometers. So my mind was losing it at the time. And then that was the first time I kind of heard this quiet voice just say, let's just see where we get to. We've come all the way to New York, we can't pull out now. So I did the whole marathon. I remember the start of the marathon, running up Staten Island, quietness, you couldn't hear a sound, just feet bounding on the pavement. Then I got into Queens and Harlem, and the music that hit you was just like, they had bands, they had choirs on the street. Then I get into Central Park, and people are shouting my name, come on Sonny, come on Sonny. I'm like, I don't even know anyone in New York. But somehow I finished the marathon. The second experience was in Stockholm. I did the triathlon in Stockholm. And I arrived there, and I hadn't done any open water swimming. I'd just been swimming in a pool. Only to find that the swim is in the sea. I saw a ship on there. My mind started to lose it. I was like, I haven't done any swimming in the sea at all. So I thought, okay, let's just go and let's do our best. I jumped into the water, and one of my first experience of when you start the triathlon, the punching and the kicking that was going on, my goggles got ripped off. Somehow I found the goggles, but I was in panic mode at this time because I had expected to get a certain time. And I remember swimming for ages and just looking at this ship, and the ship hadn't moved. It felt like 10 minutes. And to the stage where one of the wardens came and tapped me on the head to say that I'd been swimming off course, I need to go back that way. So I was in panic mode. My negative and positive voice was just going crazy. For the first time, I kind of heard this still quiet voice that just said, look, everybody's in the same boat as you. Let's just take it easy and see where we get to, one stroke at a time. And somehow, I got through the swim, got through the cycle. I ended up running the fastest 10K I've ever run. And for me, those two events led to my experience of mindfulness for sports, where I learned that metacognitive awareness, giving myself a bit of distance between my thoughts. I realized they weren't reality, so I could choose my behavior and how I was going to react to the situation. I could control my attention to what I needed to do, and I was able to self-regulate and complete those tasks. So, why do I think mindfulness is worth studying, apart from the benefits? I feel because of the distinctiveness of mindfulness. Because everybody's done psychological skills training, and everyone is trying to tell you to control your thoughts, create this optimal state of mind. What I love mindfulness is that it just flips it on its head. It tells you don't need to control your thoughts, you just need to accept your thoughts, and just in a non-judgmental way. So I think in that case it's very unique to what else is out there. The other one is the East v West clash, where it's quite strange that mindfulness was created in the East, and mindfulness is about spirituality, living an ethical life, the teachings of Buddha. When you bring it to the West, in our Western culture of compete, be the best, keep pushing on, it never really translates. And that's why I kind of thought it's important to study and share it and to make sure that we can transfer it in the right state that it was meant to be transferred. So I'm going to share a story of when I did my mindfulness-based stress reduction course. It was an 8-week course, and on the second week, my instructor came and asked me, "How was your meditation?" And I said, "It wasn't that good. I didn't achieve Zen." And she asked me, "What is Zen?" And I looked at her and said, "Are you stupid? Of course, like, what are we here doing? Like, Zen is, to me, was like yin and yang for martial arts, where I achieved this blissness, almost like Yoda from Star Wars. Like, you sit there." And after trying to explain it to her, she just nodded and carried on. And it wasn't until the 8th week, at the end of the course, we had to do a silent meditation. And basically, you have to be silent for the whole day. And it was at that experience where I just realized that there wasn't any Zen. You're not really striving for anything. So basically, I had my mind just positive, negative, going against itself. And then in the end, it just got tired and just stopped. So that to me was kind of, I realized when you're bringing mindfulness over to the West, still try to remember what the original intentions were for mindfulness. I'm going to talk about as well, so the different types of mindfulness practice. There's formal mindfulness practice, where it's seated meditation, mindful breathing, body scan, and also mindful movement. So any type of yoga is also a form of mindfulness. Then there's informal practice, where any activity you do during the day, as long as you do it mindfully, it can be mindfulness practice. So eating, going for a walk, jogging, anything that you do during the day. And there's also two types of mindfulness ability. There is what's called state mindfulness ability. So straight after practice, you normally get this nice, warm, glowing feeling. This is called state mindfulness. It's a temporary, fluid feeling you get after practice. Then there's what's called trait mindfulness ability, where it's part of your character. Because you've been doing it for so long, you can kind of enter this mindful state at will. So the study that I did for my MSc was a cross-sectional study, and I got participants to look at how much mindfulness practice, how long, and how many times a day did you have to do it to get mindfulness ability and also increase well-being. So what I wanted to do was find the sweet spot so that I could say, if you did seated meditation or mindful breathing for 1 hour every day, 4 times a week, you can increase your mindfulness ability. Because in clinical psychology, mindfulness there's a whole load of studies that have been done that show that mindfulness can treat a whole load of psychological conditions. Whereas sports, there's not really that many studies. In fact, there's only one RCT that's been done for mindfulness in sports. So I wanted to do this study to help future studies so that they could find out this, I call it the sweet spot, of how much mindfulness practice create the mindfulness ability. So before I go to the results, so what I did was I got 31 participants from a range of different countries and a range of different sports. So we had boxing, lacrosse, CrossFit, horse riding was in there. And then I used 3 mindfulness measurements. So I said the state mindfulness, I used something called the Toronto Mindfulness Scale, which had 2 characteristics on there that measured your curiosity level and the way you perceive things, your perception. Then for trait mindfulness, I used something called the 5 facets of mindfulness. That measured 5 characteristics: how you observe, acting with awareness, how you describe things, and being non-reactive to stimuli, and acting in a non-judgmental way. I'm going to show you guys the results. So the results that we found, first of all, we just looked for a relationship, and we found a relationship for 3 of the characteristics for trait mindfulness: the ability to observe, the ability to act with awareness, and the ability to be non-reactive. For state mindfulness, we found We found a relationship for curiosity. And then for sports mindfulness, we found there was another characteristic there where the ability to refocus your attention. And we found a relationship, and then from there we also looked at if there was any statistical difference as well. So there was an unexpected finding from the study. So this was the first, no study has been done like this in sports, but in mainstream psychology, there was a similar study that was done, and they found a relationship only for formal mindfulness practice. But then what we found was that for informal practice, like I said, mindful walking, mindful eating, going for a jog, we did find a relationship for 3 of the facets: observing, acting with awareness, and non-reactivity. And we also found it for state mindfulness, which is acting with curiosity. And I think this is very important because it's said to, if you want to be able to generalize mindfulness into your everyday life, informal practice is the best way to do it. So our findings kind of highlighted that more research needs to be done on how you monitor it and how you measure informal practice. Now, the story I'm going to tell you here as well is also why I think we found this relationship was most of the participants had been doing mindfulness for around 4 years, and we me and my supervisors believe that they've been able to automate, or if anything stressful happens, they can go into this mindfulness state. So my story is about 2 years ago, I was working at Credit Suisse, and I come into work one morning, and then my boss, this Italian guy called Filippo, comes in and he's shouting and screaming like the world has ended. So I come in and think, was there a terrorist attack I wasn't aware of? And I had my headphones on. And it turns out that 3 people had left our work, had resigned that day, and a project that we were working on that was supposed to be delivered in 6 months now had to be delivered in 2 months. And Filippo was shouting and having meetings and now we need to make sure that this gets delivered, the world has ended, the bank's going to get... Basically, he just created like Armageddon was going to happen. So I quietly excused myself, and for me, my mindfulness was learning, when my mind starts going crazy, I just kind of say, fuck it. So I just excused myself, went outside, got some breakfast, put some music on. And what I started to realize, what I started to do was I asked myself 2 questions. On my deathbed, will I care about what's happening? My answer to what Filippo was saying was no. If I was going to die tomorrow, what would I be doing now? And I think it was my nephew's birthday the next day, so I took the day off to go for my nephew's birthday. So I started to learn that. I didn't realize when I'd started doing that, but that experience kind of stuck with me. Was when things start to get crazy, I just say, fuck it, step out and ask this, take some time, listen to music, go and sit in nature, and ask those 2 questions. So for future research, if I could do the project again and time and money wasn't a problem, I'd administer sports-specific training, because in all my participants, no one had done any sports-specific mindfulness training. I would also get a larger, I only got 31 participants, I think I was trying to get 85. So I'd get a larger group so that I could get new practitioners who've never done mindfulness, people who had done mindfulness, and a control group. Because what I was trying to do was, I wanted a larger sample to be able to do hierarchical regression so that I could look at the explanatory variables, so that I could say, if you did seated meditation or body scan for this long, you would increase your ability to act with awareness, or your ability to observe. So if I could go back, I would do that again. What I also found was I used questionnaires. So it was open to self-report bias, the way that people answer the questions. I would try and use objective measures of mindfulness, where you look at the brain scan, neuroimaging. There's actually an app now called Muse, where you can put it on your head when you're meditating to see what's happening in your brain. I would also look at your heart rate to actually see how the mindfulness impacted your heart rate. And then I would also look at cortisol levels in saliva as well. If I could go back and do it again. But the key points from the study I found was that mindfulness practice did lead to increase mindfulness ability. I found that informal practice was important if you wanted to generalize mindfulness into everyday life. I also found that sports-specific mindfulness training is not widespread. And objective measurements of mindfulness were quite important for if you wanted to prove the empirical evidence. Okay, thank you for listening. That's the end of my MSc study. If anyone has any questions on that before we move to the next part, which is I wanted to start doing some mindfulness practice. Yeah?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm late, so maybe this is relentless. But anyway, how would you, or is there any need of distinguishing, let's say, if we talk about mindfulness, really, let's focus the awareness, for instance, in terms of like really everything what is going on in your brain,
Yeah.
and kind of phenomena like slow-paced breathing, like where actually the breathing itself, or some kind of movements that kind of create a resonance, which is then basically interacting with your heart rate and heart rate variability, and these effects slow you down. Or do you do not need to actually distinguish them because you say, okay, I don't really care because both actually help, and I don't care what it is actually, what is the, determine, the factor which is influencing the most, for instance.
Okay. So I think that question is whether what's in your head and also your breathing, whether that has an impact, whether you should look at both of them at the same time.
Or if you have to split it up, or just keep it connected and say, okay, I don't care, both helps, because maybe just if you say, sit down and breathe normally and that's it, or if you really have a slow-paced breathing session, because they found out that this is really, once you have your breathing frequency, you can really slow down your heart rate and all this stuff, and this is actually a lot of times how yoga actually works, they say, right?
Yeah. So in answer to that, there's an athlete who I work with, and I think both of them should be connected. So we work on his mind, and we do mindfulness practice so that he learns not to try and be positive or negative. We kind of have a list of, okay, what do you need to focus on the day that's useful for performance, and what's in your control. And then we do the breathing practice so that he can monitor, I call it when he's in his flow zone. So I said, if your breathing's not right, then you know that you're out of your flow zone. And then he practices the kind of breathing to kind of get him revved up or calm him down. So I think the two are connected.
Okay.
Yeah, you just mentioned this flow zone, right? So what do you think, how connected is that to actual flow state? Like, for example, described by Csikszentmihalyi.
Okay. So how your flow zone is connected to your flow state?
How flow state is connected to mindfulness.
Oh, okay. I think the two are, when I work with athletes, I think the two are very interlinked, because I think you need your mindfulness to be able to create the right, well, not create the right, to be able to accept your thoughts and be aware what is happening in your mind so that you can basically focus your attention where it needs to be and self-regulate yourself. So I think mindfulness helps you get into that flow zone state. Does that answer the question? Any other questions?
Would you say it's maybe, can one be in a flow zone without being mindful?
I would say I'm sure not every athlete uses mindfulness, and a lot of the good athletes somehow have worked out how to get there. I think most of the athletes I've come across, when I do talk to them, they are mindful, they just don't call it that, or they're not aware of that. I think like now, the talk we had yesterday, with basketball players, they're now coming out and talking about mindfulness, whereas probably 10, 15 years ago, they wouldn't have thought about all those things, the pre-performance routines they do, what they say to themselves, how they're in the zone or engaged. So I think you find that a lot of people do mindfulness, they just don't call it that.
Would you say that maybe children are by nature mindful?
Yeah, so you actually stolen my next point in. So the next bit we're going to do is informal practice. So I was going to get you guys to do some eating. I brought some grapes. And the question I was going to ask is, who do you think on there is a mindfulness expert? So the first one is my nephew JJ. The middle one is Idris the Elder. And the third one is Yoda.
So,
yeah.
You can start my question, probably. Have you experienced to work with a tennis player? Which kind of main observation and stuff that you observe?
For tennis players?
Yeah.
No, I haven't done any work for tennis players. So the answer is my nephew JJ, because he brings what is called beginner's mind. And that's one of the basic things of mindfulness. half the time when we're eating, who actually pays attention to what they're eating? You're eating, okay, there are two mindfulness experts in here as well. But my nephew JJ is like, whenever he's eating something, so I brought grapes because grapes are his favourite thing. And he has it one day, when he comes to have it the next day, it's like he's never seen it before. He's so excited, he gets the grape, he'll first look at you to make sure you haven't given him some vegetable, then he'll smell it, then he'll take half a bite of the grape, and you can see on his face, it's like, it's the best experience that he's having. And for me, a lot of the time, when I'm stressed out, I try to just do mindful eating, because it just helps bring your attention, and you bring gratitude, and you appreciate what's happening here. So, the practice I wanted to do is informal eating, so I'm going to pass around some grapes, and we're going to eat, I'm going to go through how to eat the grape mindfully, and then I want to get your feedback afterwards at the end. So if I ask if people just pass the grapes, I've washed them, so don't worry. Don't bother to